I am excited to introduce and have Kim O'Grady with me on Leverage today because we used to be colleagues at Chestnut Park. We're still colleagues in the world of real estate. But one of the things that I would say to many people, and in fact, as we were just talking about our common friend Natalka Falcomer, and I've said this to her before, with all due respect to anybody, there are not a lot of agents that I really have a lot of respect for the brand that they built. And I have always had a lot of respect for the brand that you have built out in Huntsville. So I will let you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do out in Huntsville. And I'm really excited also to have you come on to Leverage and talk about one of my favorite things in the world, which is cottages and cottage life. Because I think that although it's a little bit of what's happening in the city also happens in cottage country, but we saw in COVID what a difference that was. And now that we're on the other side, I can't wait to delve in to hear what you are seeing, but take it away.
Well, thank you, Rachel. And thank you so much for having me. It's been great to see your podcast and the growth and the information that you're providing. So thank you. It's great to be here. So like Kim O'Grady, I'm a real estate broker here in Huntsville, and I service the Huntsville, Lake of Bays area, otherwise known as North Muskoka. Muskoka is a large region. It also encompasses Gravenhurst and Bracebridge, but we sort of have because it is a large area, we sort of have this, I don't want to say a division, but I like to try to stay as hyper local as possible. And I live in Huntsville. That's where my community is. That was where my network is. So this is where I am. So we have an office on Main Street, Huntsville. And we opened the actual office in 2019. Before that, we were all sort of working pre-COVID. We were working from home, and then in 2019 opened the branch as seeing it as an opportunity to really increase the market share and the knowledge of our brokerage in Chestnut Park within the community. So, and I've been in real estate, it'll be 12 and a half years. So that I started in 2011.
I feel like I think we might have gotten licensed around the same time. I actually the other day was like, I need to stop telling people how long I've been in this and actually check. And I don't even know where to check. I definitely beat over 10 years, but, and when you talk about like the division, it's interesting. I remember I was having a conversation with a client and I said, they were waiting for me to get a hold of a realtor up north. And I said, listen, you're lucky. I mean, I own a cottage. I'm blessed enough to have something in Halliburton. You guys have definitely your own brown zones, but like there are places in cottage country where you have no cell reception and you get into your car and you're done for the day. And then you come back and you have a whole day of catching up from what you lost while being on the road.
Yes. Yeah. And it's funny because it just, even with, it's definitely a guided experience when we're working with buyers coming up from the city and they're like, we'd like to see these 5 cottages. And it's like
that's 8 hours,
a 12-hour day. Yeah. Like it's like, it's the logistics, anyway. So that's always fun as well, as making sure that we're mapping out a tour that's realistic and doesn't leave somebody completely exhausted.
I almost feel like it's off topic, but like how many kilometers do you put on your car a year? I think about Toronto, like we can do a tour of the East End and be done, in a few hours, even seeing 5 places depending, but I'm not putting the kind of mileage on my car. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it can be a lot. I think in my career, the highest was almost 650 kilometers in a day.
Wow. Yeah.
It was a lot. So it's, I don't do a lot of that anymore because I have more listings than I do. So it helps with the kilometers a bit, but yeah, the mileage can get you.
All right. So let's delve into it. So I'm trying to think about, I think my daughter was like 7 or 8. She's 20 now. So we've owned a cottage for, let's say, almost as long as you've been in real estate. I was not paying necessarily attention to it back then, but what would you say is like the biggest difference? Like when we were talking about what we were going to talk about today, one of the thoughts obviously is like, I think about that old stereotype that people who owned a cottage were only really like teachers because they had, the summers off and could enjoy it. And that's really now pivoted to that 1% of the population that can afford a cottage.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, what would you say in the last, decade or so have you seen as the biggest change, whether it's in ownership or just buying trends?
So it's interesting because actually that was my introduction to cottaging. Where my parents were school teachers. My dad was a principal, my mom was a teacher, and we actually rented a cottage for years on Penn Lake here in Huntsville. But it's been interesting to see that there's a couple of things that happen when we see buyers coming into the cottage market coming up from the GTA. A lot of them have had an experience with a cottage as a kid, and now they have family of their own, and now they want to be able to share that experience with their own children. So that really drives a lot of the cottage, who our cottage buyer is. They know the cottage experience, the value that it can do to enrich your life. So they want to have their kids to have that experience. I mean, the interesting thing that we've seen happening too in cottage country, and this is where we thought, again, pre-COVID, we were running into supply issues, is nobody was really selling their cottages. And you'd have to literally wait for a cottage to either the kids inherited it.
Yes, there's a lot of like off the market, pass it along to a child, pass it down to a dollar. When you could actually pass something down for $1.
Exactly. Yeah. And so we would see that. So very little would actually hit the market. So we did have an inventory issue, whereas what we're seeing now, going back to affordability, even just the property taxes on certain cottage properties, never mind the upkeep and all of the care, who's going to take care of it, can also really put a lot of strain on a family dynamic. I feel like that's another conversation.
Oh my God, yes.
But it's like, so these cottages that may have been gifted or inherited, we're just not seeing that anymore. We're seeing them actually come to market because the kids just either don't have the funds, and when I say kids, I'm referring to like 40s.
Totally, yes.
Right. So
children, who can't afford that. Right.
Exactly. Or don't have the time. And that's another thing too we see with cottage buyers, particularly as you sort of go through the generations, is I've helped people buy a cottage, let's say 5 years ago, when their kids were 8 and 10 years old. Now all of a sudden their kids are teenagers, they're involved in sports, they have jobs back home. Now the idea and the appeal of the cottage is like, do we have to? So that's really shifted as well in terms of the demographic. But it's definitely not just I would say it's just not the teacher demographic anymore, but it's the people coming up, had that experience, can afford it, especially now.
I was going to say, is the affordability issue also, like, I think to myself, from a price point standpoint, was that something that, you scraped together to do as a family, generational, like cheap vacation, you weren't going, you weren't spending big money to go away in the summer or go to Europe, or your kids didn't go to camp. And now that's not where the prices are. Like that's not the inexpensive option at all. Even renting, which I feel like I want to kind of actually get to at the end. So, okay. So we've like let it up, like things have changed. And it's true. Like both my children played hockey. They've now both in university, but before it was, okay, well, as soon as September came, even though we have a 4-season cottage, well, we just stopped going because, our youngest was still in hockey. This is the first year where we're like, oh, we can just go up anytime we want.
Yeah.
And smaller. So when you have smaller kids, it's much, much harder for sure. And life is more.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then, but so now you've got this like shift in the market,
Yeah.
you're seeing different trends, and then COVID hits. Like, and who would have, I mean, who would have thought that it would have caused what it caused, especially in cottage country? We were super lucky. We had horseshoes. We bought the summer before COVID hit. Like, if there's ever a hindsight.
It's interesting because I think we could probably all kind of remember around that March 20th, 2020, in around, I think it was between the 15th and the 20th, when, we're going to stay home for 2 weeks, everybody. And 2 weeks, 2 years.
It was like triggering. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and yeah, I mean, we had no idea. Nobody could see what was happening. I think we were all preparing, for I know that there were people that I was working with who were like, we need to unload now. We need to, if the world's going to end, we need to get rid of it. We need to liquidate our assets and let's go. So that's what we saw a lot at the early part, was a lot of this fear-based, I need to sell because the world's going to end. And then
there was also, sorry to interrupt, but like there were also like logistics. So I had a cottage on Lake Simcoe, so not far from me.
Yeah.
No, Lake Simcoe. And we put it up and COVID came, and there was logistics of like, can we get stagers out? Could we, like, we didn't know, like, people are like, oh, buy, sell, fine, unload. No, but there were all the, like, we didn't even know if they were going to be able to like actually land transfer it in the office, right? Like, there were all those precautions that we took. Sorry to interrupt. It was I remember that. Like, can we get the furniture out? Like,
what is deemed essential, right? Like that whole debate, what is an essential service? And thankfully, real estate was still deemed an essential service. And we obviously, as we know, had to fine tune it and make some changes. And, the policies of only the 2 people on title for the showings. This is not an opportunity to bring the whole family. And, so those types of, patterns and behaviors changed, but it was interesting to all of a sudden. And then of course the workplace, people could work remotely. And so they're like, get me out of the city, and I want space. I want, clean air to breathe. And so we saw that this, all of a sudden the prices in early 2020 starting to just escalate, and these multiple offer situations, which frankly in cottage country we were not used to. In the city you deal with this in bully offers. We had to say, what is about, like, it was the 72-hour irrevocables, like the escalation clauses, everything to what it was, just a lot in a very short time. So particularly for new agents coming into the market, it was a massive learning curve. But even for more seasoned agents, like even myself, I was like, wow, this is a completely different market we're navigating through.
Right. Pivot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
it was and then of course, I mean, I remember when COVID hit, we were actually in Israel at the time. We got one of the last flights back into Pearson before everything was shut down. And I remember texting the kids going like, we're on our way home, and we're just like, pack your bags, we're going to the cottage. I mean, it got us through. There's no question. I was one of the very privileged few. I say that with all humbleness. And I think to myself, I understood that rush to have another place to escape because we were under lock and key in the cities.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There was a point where, I remember the mayors were saying, do not come to your second property. They didn't even want us coming to visit. So that lasted up until, so we all remember like the craziness. And I have to tell you, I had, like many extraordinary years at that time, I had a ton of listings. Obviously, we're all holding back. I remember it being also really tough just as a human being on the side of, selling and watching all these young people trying to get the properties and their agents trying so hard. And I remember saying like, I'm with you. Like, I wish I could do more. I've got one house. It's going to go to the highest bidder. I know that's really crappy, but it was also tough to be on that side just as a human, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I'm not
Like
sad to see it gone. Like I will say that. I mean, I hate my sellers aren't going to feel that way, but I'm happy not to see. Like I think people out there don't realize, and I'm sure you agree because I know you're an amazing human. Like a balanced market is great. Let us put it up. Let people come. Let them be able to do their due diligence, drive, come back with their family. Let it be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone to feel pressured and bullied and have remorse.
Well, and that's the thing, like FOMO was, you had FOMO on the buyer side, FOMO on the seller side, and it both were being driven, and nothing ever positive comes out of fear. And in the sense of, especially when that's leading your decision making. And that's where, as realtors, it was very important for us to act as guides, but you also you didn't have a lot of time to think because you had to act almost. So I agree with you. I'm glad those days are behind us because it's just there. It becomes more about winning. And that's when you have, and we're seeing fallout from that now. We're seeing cottages that come up for sale that were purchased in 2021 that, for whatever reason, those people bought them. Now whatever their reasons for selling, buyer remorse, financial, they didn't realize how much work it was going to be. They've been called back to work, several reasons, but we're seeing these cottages come back on the market, which it's interesting because I in preparation for our call today, I was just running some numbers. So in 2019, so the pre-COVID
let's get into
market.
Today. I would love to hear. We talked about COVID craziness. Tell us what you're seeing. Yeah, Jedi Master, let us know.
Yeah, so the average sale price for waterfront in 2019 was sitting just under $1 million, with days on market sitting around 50 and 90 and selling for 97% of list price. So again, this is Huntsville, Lake of Bays area, right? The highest sale that year was 4.7 million on Lake of Bays. So, and there were 147 sales. So that was in 2019. Then we jump into 21. Okay, I didn't go into 2020. I'm skipped 20. I'm just giving you a high level.
Yeah.
So in 2021, there were 212 sales. The average the average list price or sale price rather was 1.4.
Wow.
And it was selling for 108% of sale to list. And
under $1 million to 1.4 in 2
to 1.4.
See that? Like, that's just not okay. Like, it's not sustainable. We all saw it happen. But anyway, sorry. Crazy.
No, that's okay. But the 108 sale to list price ratio. So there, we know right there things are selling for over ask, and days on market were 19.
Oh my God, 19. I always say to people when they come to me, just because they know I've owned a cottage, like, there are so many pieces to owning a cottage that are like, you don't know from if you own a home. You can know the lake and you may be on a part of a lake that's totally different than around the corner that's 100 yards away, that, the well, the septic, you can't do that in 19 days and see it, right?
No. And 212 sales compared to 147 the year before. Yeah. And so in now 2023, now we're not finished the year yet, obviously, but there's been 96 sales to date. Yeah. But here's the interesting thing. The average sale price, 1.7. So the average sale price has increased, but
okay, sorry.
Yep. And then the sale to list price is 96%. So we're seeing a higher average sale price, but fewer sales. So the higher price points have been moving, right? Which brings up that average, right? So but we're back to 42 days on market. So in 2019, we were at the average of 50 days on market. Now in 23, while we have a higher average sale price, we're sitting still around the same 42 days on market and selling for 96% of list price. But the conversation that we're having with sellers right now is, yeah, listen, there's and this is always, a topic of conversation. I shouldn't say always, but a lot. It comes up. There's what you want to get, and then there's what you can realistically get based on where we are in the market. And that is really sort of that those conversations we're having now with sellers is, yes, our average. So a seller might look at that, a prospective seller, and say, yeah, but that's $700,000 more than 2019.
Right.
Yes, prices have appreciated, but we've also seen fewer sales, and there's actually more inventory on the market now. So buyers are having more choice, and they're taking their time.
Not to put you on the spot, but if you remember, I know in Toronto when September numbers, and again, I always say to clients, our data is rear view mirror stuff, right? So I can only tell you what has happened. I can't tell you what's going to happen, which, as you know, and I think is a totally fair question. Hey, Rachel, what do you think? What do you think is going to happen? And I give you my prediction based on my expertise and my time on, on the ground. But, we also, let's just say we saw prices basically flat. Again, for you, it's different because again, I would almost say you're not looking at like condo detached, semi-detached. I think you're looking at like 3 season, 4 season, big lake, small lake, like, that type of thing. But, I think that it's become very product specific. And we also saw a 44% increase in listings year over year for us. So that was, and we've been saying in the city market, so interesting to hear what you think about like from a cottage perspective, but one of the things that kept the prices stable, even while the Bank of Canada was hiking the interest rates, was that there was no inventory. Well, now there's so much inventory, so much. Now, again, more so in the condo market than the detached market, but where are you seeing the inventory come out? Like, so now you're saying you have more inventory. Are you seeing it? Like, and I'm sure you've seen all these like ridiculous TikToks. There's one guy that wants to tell everybody the cottage market is like on fire. Okay. I'm like, stop. But like, honestly, they're showing these things. I'm like, out of context, you have no idea what you're talking about, but great. Yes, there's more inventory. So where are you seeing the inventory come out? Like at a starter price cottage?
So we have a lot of inventory right now in sort of that spot between 750 and 1.5. There is
very interesting.
And
so that's the entry level, right?
The entry level now. I mean, entry level used to be 500-600 for a cottage.
I think I bought
not too long ago.
No, I think, well, this was 12 years ago, but I, like, full disclosure, I bought on a shoestring budget, a little 3 season on the South Bay of Haliburton. Like I wasn't even main strip for like 265,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, but that was what was you can't find a plot of land. I don't care where you go for that kind of money without anything on it.
No, Exactly. So these price points, it's like the first time home buyer off water, right? It's sort of that. I mean, right now for the residential off water, I mean, for a first time home buyer right now, our average list price in Huntsville is sitting around 700,000. So
for 3 season or 4 season?
No. This is residential off.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
I'm even just saying that. So I look at these cottages between 7 and 1.5. And, it even during COVID, we almost said, 700 became the new million. So a $700,000 cottage was now selling for $1 million. And now those $1 million cottages are no longer worth $1 million. They're sliding back towards maybe not 700, but could be in around that 850, but we haven't got there yet in a lot of sellers' minds. So a lot of it is going to be education and guidance moving forward.
Yeah. And we started that discussion when we got on and we were recording was, as two people who have been in this and I hate to say this out loud, and I do feel bad, but I've had several conversations with some of these agents who are calling me right now on listings that I have. And I'm not saying it in a rude way, but I'm just like, how long you been doing this? Because like the challenge that I'm seeing in the market, and I don't know if it's the same in cottage country, is like managing those expectations, understanding what we're in. I said to an agent, like, you need to educate your clients to understand that this is a downturn of the market. It's not the beginning of the end. Like,
Yes.
we are going, Muskoka is always going to be Muskoka. Port Carling, Huntsville is always going to be there. This is not about the start of the end. And, before we run out of time, I kind of want to touch on going back to that crystal ball, but like predictions about, my prediction is Bank of Canada is not going to touch that interest rate. I think they would just destroy the economy and the housing market if they touch it this month or December. What will come in spring, I don't know. But what do you predict for spring market in cottage country?
So
we'll come back and
we'll come back and watch. I do think they're going to do another increase. As much as I think that I just feel that they're not to if they were to do a decrease or even hold, like if they were to even hold stable right now, wonderful. However, I just feel that we're probably going to see a few more increases, whether they do the increase stable to kind of pacify us in between. I think we're actually going to have more supply in the spring than we have with more people either in a position where they have to sell, unfortunately, giving buyers sort of that back into, and I feel in terms of the cottage market, we are back in a pre-COVID market where people who are buying cottages right now don't need a cottage. They want a cottage.
Yes.
They are taking their time. They're discerning. They want to check off most of their boxes on that list. They have to have that warm, fuzzy feeling. And until they do, they'll wait. And we haven't experienced that over the past, when. And so, but in 2019, 2018, buyers took their time. It would be not uncommon for me to work with a cottage buyer 2 to 3 seasons before they actually bought something, because it is such an emotional purchase. So where I can see us going is having more inventory in the spring. Therefore, pricing is going to have to be more competitive, because we're back to that very discerning buyer who is taking their time. They have, they're ready to go, but they're going to wait for the right one.
No, that's a very interesting perspective. Maybe my hope, I definitely think the interest rate will go up again. I'm just, maybe I'm willing it not to happen this year, only because I feel like just in general, and I know I'm sure you've heard from clients just how, stressed out they are from the interest rates rising. I think everyone just needs a break. It doesn't mean that they're not going to increase it in the spring. I think just letting everybody have a little bit of just one breath.
Well, and I think my conversations with my clients is like, I am not pointing out any doom or gloom. It's, how can we best prepare? Like, maybe now is a time to be lean, not operate from a scarcity mindset, because that's a fear mindset, but let's be lean here. Let's make positive choices or choices that are going to not put you further in debt. Right. And this is where the thing is too. People are carrying a lot of debt right now. So any move of the needle is making people vulnerable. So I think sort of trying to empower people to sort of, it's not time to sort of press the brake. It's maybe just let off the gas a little bit and just focus on what areas in your life right now do you maybe need to lean out in order to be able to do if a cottage is still on your radar, you can still do it. But what are the things that you can proactively do now that's going to set you up for future success?
I like it. I feel like so many other things I want to ask you, but we're running out of time.
Yeah.
We didn't get to the rental market. We didn't get to anything. we'll have you back if you're willing, and
Absolutely.
we'll put all of your contact info in the show notes as well. Anybody wants to reach out to you and get more information about the cottage market. And it's so good to see you.
So
Always
good to
so
see you,
happy for your
Rachel.
success. And yeah, have a wonderful week. I hope the sun is shining. It's gorgeous here. So I hope it's beautiful with all the leaves changing up there.
It is. It is. It's beautiful. They're hanging on despite all the rain we've had. It's yeah, beautiful and sunny here, and yeah, it's great.
I also would say,
Yeah.
if anybody just wants to get to know Muskoka more, Kim is amazing at really promoting all the local shops, stores, and all the events. So if you want to just have like your finger on the pulse of Muskoka, you're the best person to follow for sure.
Thank you, Rachel.
Oh
Appreciate it.
yeah, you bet. Have a great day. And oh, here
Thank
comes
you.
my dog. I know for sure it's
Okay.
over now. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
bye.
Okay, bye.